On Monday, the co-founder and CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, stepped down, being replaced immediately by Parag Agrawal, who served as chief technology officer since 2017. In a memo, Dorsey said he'd remain on the board through Mayish in 2022 and then leave. He said, "I believe it's critical a company can stand on its own, free of its founders' influence or direction. And there aren't many founders that choose their company over their own ego. I know we'll prove this was the right move."
I think it's inevitable that when you have a lot of these tech startups that grow very, very rapidly, the group dynamic that caused it to be successful and grow rapidly might not be sustainable over time.
A recent report from Challenger Gray and Crispus Incorporated found that CEO resignations in October were up 54% from a year ago. Tech was the second highest sector, with 144 resignations so far this year.
It would be wise for the founding generation to actually give up control on a day-to-day basis of these entities sooner than they tend to do. I think there's a natural tendency to want to hold on to your baby and guide it and shape it. But it's a very different role, coming up with the idea in the first place and refining it in its very earliest years, and then running it when it becomes something that has hundreds of millions of users, and in Twitter's case, influence even beyond those hundreds of millions of users.
Dorsey's resignation comes during a year where Twitter, Facebook, Google, and Amazon have all faced a grilling from Congress over privacy, the spread of disinformation, and free speech protection.
The reality is that these large companies are playing a very interesting role between whether they are public squares or they are not public squares. They have an outsized influence, and something will be done in some point to ensure that diversity of thought is there, freedom of speech is protected, and really what is the definition of safe speech and who can enforce that.
Of the tech companies regularly called to appear before Congress, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, now known as Meta, is the only founder still serving as CEO.
There are always calls about having the founder step down, and especially in Mark's case, but he's got outsized voting control, so I don't think that'll happen. But it's also part of the allure, right? A tech startup having the original founder as the CEO, that's part of the reason why people join a company, because they want that inspiration.
As for former Twitter CEO Dorsey, he's still the CEO of financial services company Square, which just this week changed its name to Block, a nod to technology that Dorsey has been passionate about, blockchain. So while burnout has been cited as the top reason for CEO resignations, this may very well fall into another category: better opportunities elsewhere. Mark New, CGTN, San Francisco.